Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Small Business Briefing. It is Monday, July 19th. I'm Rob Fowler, the CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan. And actually, Brian Calley, president of SBAM, is also here today. It's the first time in 2 weeks that we've both been on the briefing. Brian, we both have slightly different, although we're both in the office today, we both have a jacket on. That might be a first as well. This is briefing number 184, and I think it's the first time we've both been dressed in business dress. Welcome back from vacation, and welcome to your new office.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And it is great to be here in the office. You know, we've gone to a hybrid schedule where some of our employees are home working from home or working remotely, and others are in the office part-time. But I find myself drawn here. It's quieter and also fewer distractions, interruption to the work. No, I love it. It's actually great to be back with the staff and with the people that make SBAM so special. So yeah, it's good to be here, and look forward to another briefing. Here we are, 184. Who'd have thought?
So let's get started. By the way, I should mention this briefing is brought to you by the Marana Group, or by Marana Group. Marana Group is a data, documents, and distribution solutions company, and you can find out more about them at maranagroup.com. Just interesting time. Things are essentially open back up. There are a couple of things that are yet to open. The border between U.S. and Canada being one of those things. We understand there is a time frame for that, and it's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, we just talked about this with Representative McLean a few weeks ago, and this has been a big issue, especially for businesses that rely on cross-border tourism, shopping, retail. There are a lot of Canadians that come to our border communities to shop and eat and entertain and find entertainment and all manner of things. And so it's been a long-term process here where the Canadian government kept on extending the deadline. So now we know that in August 9th will be the date when Americans can cross and the cross-border Canadians and Americans. Now, for U.S. citizens going to Canada, you will have to prove your vaccination status to go there. What form that will take or how they'll verify that, not clear yet. But finally, things, not what they call non-essential border traffic, it looks like it's going to ease up a bit between our two countries. And this is a big deal because the U.S. and Canada are the biggest trade partners in the world, and that border is the number one or number two busiest border crossings for trade in the world. So very integrated economies, and everything that we can do to open that back up will help Michigan businesses.
All right. Well, we have a guest a little bit later on, but it is Monday, and that's Data Monday, and so let's kind of dig into. I know there are a couple of things you've been watching. Let's dig in.
Yeah, I want to share with you a numbers briefing, which is a little more in depth than what we've been doing lately, and it's not for good reasons. So just there's a lot of things happening today, and even though in Michigan things still look pretty good, we're seeing in all 50 states modest to substantial increases starting now as the Delta variant takes hold here in a more substantial way. So we're looking at Michigan right now, and as you'll see, Michigan a week ago had an average case rate per day of 224. Now it's up to 293. So increasing, but still, if you look, very, very low. When was the last time it was this low? Well, last June. So last June and right into early July, it had gotten down this low, and so here we are back again. So this is a natural low point for us. Anyway. Now we see the percent positive has increased over the last 2 weeks. It's up to 2.2%. Still good. We like anything under 3%. The epidemiologists consider to be to be very good, but it was down, 1.9, 1.8% before. So on the rise, the cases per million that had gone from 12.4 to 18.1 cases per million. And then hospitalization, though, still decreasing. And that's a good sign. We'll look at some of the reasons why that might be here in a few minutes. So here are the global numbers. So we'll take a look at several aspects, especially around the country in a few minutes. But as you can see, this last increase, which is really driven by India, went up and down. But now we see in Southeast Asia numbers rising. Malaysia, kind of the epicenter right now in the world, but across Europe, across so many different places right now, the cases are on the rise. Africa, South America still struggling in different parts of South America as well. So these numbers are increasing, and it's really kind of happening all over the place. Now, in terms of the Delta variant, this is a slide from the Department of Health and Human Services, and I just borrowed it for our presentation here because I wanted to share this bullet point mainly. Given the low population vaccination coverage throughout the United States, another surge is inevitable. So they use the word inevitable. And so as we look at other countries here, I want to draw your attention here to United Kingdom. Take a look at the United Kingdom. It has strong vaccination rates, but it is protective against the Delta variant, but there's still a substantial portion of unvaccinated, and that's quite an increase. They're into another wave in the UK. It's coming with less serious illness, of course, because of being this far into vaccination. But and take a look at the Netherlands and how much that has shot right up to. So now, just looking at daily vaccination rates and each of the regions of the country or of the world, you see here this coming down. North America has just continued to come down. Of course, Africa has stayed low the entire time. So there's at a time when cases are rising, we see in most places around the world vaccination rates are falling. So let's take a look at the United States of America. We have, as you can see, it's gotten down pretty low. It's definitely going up now. So this has the kind of look sharp enough to where it's concerning, because increases and decreases tend to have momentum. And so it looks like increases are there's some momentum behind it. Hospitalizations around the country up about 30%, and deaths are up 23%. But I would point out 23% from a very low level. So the percentage looks big. The absolute numbers are not as big. But you can see a heat map on where it's coming from here around the south, and then there's in a state like Texas, you got very few cases over here and quite a few over in this part. So, but take a look at Michigan. I mean, Michigan looks pretty good. The only darker shaded one, I think this is Iron County over here. So now looking at the vaccination levels. So here we've got a pretty big increase, and this is in Louisiana or I'm sorry, Arkansas. And you can see that, deaths are rising again from a low level, hospitalizations in the last couple of weeks up, cases up, and up at a trajectory that looks pretty sharp. And so you got, what do we have here? Less than 1/3 of the population fully vaccinated, 44% at least one dose, under 80% 65 and up. So in this type of case, you're going to see deaths go up and hospitalization in addition to the cases. So looking at Louisiana, kind of the same thing. A little bit higher on those 65 and up, as you can see, but only about 1/3 of the population fully vaccinated. Not really much protection against a wave. And so you see that, look at the sharpness of this increase that has started. So once they start going up like that, it won't start going down until it slows. And right now it doesn't show any real signs of slowing. So again, deaths up, although from a very small number. Now taking a look at Tennessee. Tennessee, their numbers got really, really low. So even though this percentage increase in cases is huge, I would point out it's a huge percent increase from a very, very low level. Whereas if you look at Louisiana, it never got down that low. So, but still, fully vaccinated, at least one dose, still very low numbers. Although decent protection here for those 65 and up. So what that would tell me is that you're going to see increased hospitalization in Tennessee, maybe not as severe in terms of fatalities as previous waves because of that. Ohio actually, even though their cases are going up, you'll notice that their hospitalization and deaths still going down. But let's take a look. They're about 50% at least one dose, and 84% at least one dose over age 65. So as you see these numbers get up into the 80s, you'll see it show up in these hospitalization and death rates. So same here for taking a look at Michigan, over 50% and almost 50% fully vaccinated. And then look at these numbers for those 65 and up. So these are strong. And again, you see our cases are going up, but hospitalization and death both still going down. So eventually those will stop going down and either level out or perhaps go up again. But the vaccination levels give us more protection compared to some other places. In Wisconsin, their 65 and up population even stronger, 91%, 88%. I mean, that's solid.
Yeah.
And so look at this. They got their cases up 102% over the last 2 weeks, but deaths down 25%. It's all about this line right there with 91% vaccinated, 88% fully vaccinated over age 65. Really solid results. Texas, Texas doing okay in terms of their vaccination. They're pretty much on par with where Michigan is, but they do see higher case rates, and hospitalization has started to rise. If you look at the heat map in Texas, so you can see when the state is that big, then you can have areas that it's totally under control and others that are having real problems, and it's just a big state. So the fact that you see this data here in terms of cases, hospitalization, and death not matching up as well as it does in some of the other smaller states is because big states have regions that can perform very differently in all of these measures. Now with Florida, the case level rises 190% in the last 2 weeks, but just look at the shape of the graph. So this is concerning when you see the numbers increasing like that. Hospitalization up 68%, but deaths only up 8% when hospitalization up 68%. Now, why would that be? Well, here you've got 91%, at least one dose of 61 and up, so over 90%, and then half of their population. One thing I'd point out, though, is fully vaccinated, they've got a big gap. 91%, at least one dose over age 65, fully vaccinated, only 79%. So their follow-up with the second shot makes them a little more vulnerable to some of the other states that have similar first dose numbers. And then looking at New York, New York's 65 and up is a little bit lower than, say, Wisconsin, for example, but their total population number is really solid. And so, you see these numbers all still looking pretty good. Everywhere in the country is seeing increases. Literally all 50 states are seeing case level increases, but there's many states like Michigan, like New York, still seeing their hospitalization and death numbers go down. And so California is another one where I would just point out here that they see their hospitalization and death going up a little more than other places. Look at their second dose adherence, so not good. 95% got their first dose, only 76% got the second dose. When you're over age 65, that second dose is really important. It's showing up in their numbers. So you can see it over here in the more serious illness that comes from the virus. A couple of countries to share: United Kingdom. I don't have it broken down by age. The source didn't have that, but you can see deaths going up, but from a very low number. So at 40 for the whole country, and so the UK has like 65 or 66 million people. So so that the case level going up, though, the way that it has, really the Delta variant has been spreading widely there for a number of months. So that's why you see this number going up. And unfortunately, I think it's a bit of a precursor for us in what might be in our country's future. Although hopefully we're better protected against more serious illness. And then and looking at our neighbor to the north, we see the numbers going down and staying pretty low. Good performance on their vaccinations, pretty similar to us in terms of overall population. And then in Mexico, you see it going up pretty sharply, and vaccination levels pretty low. So they've got a lot of risks there in Mexico. So it's it's concerning when just a month ago it looked like things were kind of in retreat. You never know, is it fully in retreat and permanently in retreat in the U.S. But I think it's pretty clear now that it's not. And it's one of the reasons why you see us continue to focus and talk about the extra protection that a higher vaccination level gives us. When we look at these hospitalization and deaths, since the beginning of this year, literally 99% of the deaths were from people that had not received the vaccine, and 97% of hospitalizations were of people that hadn't received the vaccine. So as we look at what our risks are for the future and for our members to have either rules or restrictions or workplace safety rules and all the costs that come with that, that the not having a wave in the future is our best insurance against that. And that's one of the reasons why we've really taken that on as an issue. Certainly not to argue with anybody about it. People with deeply held convictions that they just don't want to do that. This is a free country, and it is up to them. But we do want to share that they are safe and effective, and that it's one of the most important things that can be done in order to protect against future restrictions and costs added on to small businesses that have already been through way too much.
Well, and one of the things that is clear is that 99% of all the hospitalizations and 97% of the deaths from people who are unvaccinated today. So it is clearly a personal risk mitigation as well. I'm reminded that this time last year, we were just coming off the 4th of July holiday. We were looking for a spike. The regions 6 and 7 had loosened some restrictions going into that holiday, but the numbers were low. And I don't think we saw, or maybe certainly didn't, predict in the way it happened, another wave or another spike. And so this is concerning, and that notion of inevitability is certainly something that we're going to have to pay attention to what happens this fall. Hey, let's move along. Another number that we've been watching, and this one is maybe a little bit more on the horizon, it's inflation. And it's interesting. We've said and wondered how many of our members, how many small business owners have actually ever operated a business in an inflationary environment. It's a whole different way of operating. The June numbers came out, and not really great news.
This is now 2 months in a row with high inflation. So last month was 5.4%, and that's the highest that we've seen since August of 2008. Remember, August of 2008 was not a precursor for good times to come, and so inflation is always concerning. Now, whether or not it'll be like before, where it was a short-term issue, or if it's long-term problematic inflation that sticks with us for a long time, as it was back, well, geez, around the time I was born. That's the jury's still out on that. And so it's concerning. And we had our entrepreneurship scorecard that came out recently, and one of the conclusions that we came to is that federal spending in 2020 was really important in keeping the bottom from falling out of our economy. So there's the Paycheck Protection Program, there was enhanced unemployment support, there was stimulus checks. So at a time in 2020 when things were so restricted and so locked down, those were really important, made a big difference. But those same programs continued for too long is starting to have, or has been really all year, has been having very negative impacts on the ability to hire people and the ability to grow and expand business, to get things restarted, and the cost of running a business in a lot of different ways. And then, of course, for the individuals, higher costs make a big difference too. So yeah, we see wages rising, but we also see prices rising. So this is another area where we're really pretty concerned about the future, and in hopes that this battle of the economists right now, and those who think this inflation is a short-term issue and those who think it could be a long-term issue, hopefully that it's more of a short-term issue, but unfortunately, there's very little consensus on that.
Yeah. Well, I missed a couple of days of economics class back in college, but I think I was there the day they talked about the relationship between supply and demand. And certainly we know what's happening with labor supply and demand, and that does spell wages and benefits going up in cost. All right, so those are kind of some numbers to look at. There's a couple of other things going on. We reported last week that Unlock Michigan, the effort to gather signatures and get it on the ballot or go straight to the legislature had been in front of the Senate and waiting on the House. That is essentially the repeal of the 1945 Riot Act. But there's another one coming maybe right behind it. I think you called it Unlock 2. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's more language that has gone before the Board of Canvassers to get approval to collect signatures, and it's the Unlock 2 initiative. And this goes after the epidemic emergency orders that the governor relied on after the Emergency Powers of the Governor Act was struck down by the Supreme Court last year. So basically what this next petition will say is, yes, the governor does need to have this type of unilateral power, but limits it to 28 days. So after 4 weeks, then the state government's got to figure out how to operate in the normal course of things, where changing the rules and laws are not up to just one person. So this really takes the effort that was before aimed at that 1945 Riot Act, which was broader than epidemic emergency powers. It was really during times of emergency. It gave broad sweeping powers. It's what was used to control for several things in education and the economy, in addition to the epidemic itself. So essentially the same goal as before, only not repealing the act, but limiting it to 28 days.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Keep small businesses updated on it. We've also been paying attention to the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This one seems to be moving slower than maybe the PPP and others. This is a fund that is administered by the SBA and targeted very much at restaurants, obviously. What's the latest on that?
So the SBA did put out the numbers on how many applications that they had taken in, 278,000, and they ran out of money after 101,000. So they have made the awards to the first 101, actually not the first 101,000. They did have in the law requirements that they first fund economically disadvantaged businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. So there are categories that had to be funded first, and then to everybody else. And it didn't come close to meeting the need. That's not a surprise. Remember, we had Congressman Upton on a few weeks ago, and he talked about their effort to replenish that fund, and that's still an effort that's alive and trying to make its way through the legislative process to essentially meet the demand for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. But it hasn't happened yet. And so if you haven't already received your approval until Congress acts, I'm afraid that they've made all the awards that they have funds to make. And so we're hopeful, still lobbying to get it replenished, because it was made as kind of like a promise to everybody, or a statement like this is for the whole industry. And it unfortunately did not even come close to meeting the need.
And I think the criticism we've heard most is about just the lack of communication about it. I mean, there may be those who haven't heard back, who may think they're still in line, and there's got to be some communication coming out of the SBA to let people know their status.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That's been a point of frustration. What we've really heard was, people applied, they may have received an acknowledgement that they applied, but never heard anything back. And so what happened though is the fund ran out of money, and it would have been nice if they said, "Hey, we'll hold your place in line. We're waiting to see if Congress replenishes the fund," but that type of communication really hasn't happened.
All right, let's talk about another part of the bureaucracy. This one, the state's unemployment system. I'm trying to be kind, bungling, I think, going on in state government. In this case, we know that the UI system has had its issues since the beginning, really overwhelmed by demand. But now the state is really trying to undo some mistakes it looks like the state has made, or at least it's between the state and federal government. But it's going to fall on individuals, and from our perspective, some sole props may well get caught up in this.
The state has notified 648,000 businesses that some of the criteria that they put as qualifiers to get this unemployment support was actually not correct, or didn't qualify you to receive the money. So it's not clear how many of those 648,000 will qualify under some other reason, and how many will have to pay the money back. But essentially the process, the communication has gone out to say you have to essentially re-justify. If you selected one of these criteria that the state mistakenly put on the application, then if you don't qualify in any other way with any other criteria, the ramifications being you'd have to pay the money back. And then to add insult to injury, we saw today reported in the Detroit News that that it would be subject to interest and penalties as well. So this is one that I know it's a real punch in the gut to people who had relied on that system, and something happened with the state's interpretation of the federal rules for who qualifies that just didn't make it to the system correctly. And we're in hopes that it won't be anywhere near 648,000 that are caught up in this, but that's at least the total amount that were notified that they may be.
And to be clear, 648,000 individuals, some of whom are small businesses, 1099 employees, behaving like a small business, and sole props, and some others who wouldn't have been eligible before the pandemic. All right, hey, one more topic. We thought we were going to have a guest today, and I think he'll join us on Thursday. State Representative Tisdale, who we wanted him to talk a little bit about a piece of legislation that he championed. But let's get to the end of this. We have a call to action out right now. Let's talk about the call to action, and then hopefully Thursday he can come and join us and kind of fill in the blanks on this one. What is the call to action about specifically?
So we've talked on this briefing about a bill that would allow, or would ensure, that small businesses, pass-through companies like LLCs and S corporations could fully deduct their state tax liability on their federal tax return. And didn't cost the state anything other than administrative costs. And it passed with wide bipartisan support. Representative Tisdale, one of our endorsed candidates in the last election, by the way, introduced this legislation, shepherded it through the process, worked closely with Treasury, worked with Republicans and Democrats. There was this huge, great bipartisan support or bipartisan victory. And then the governor vetoed it, and saying that, well, it was going to, the cost of implementing it, setting it up in the Treasury system was $5 million. And therefore it just could, she just vetoed it. And the thing is that it would save small businesses in Michigan $190 million on their federal taxes, and that would be spread over about we estimate about 170,000 small businesses that this would benefit. So not an insignificant amount. The administrative expense was insignificant compared to the benefit to small business. We're puzzled, surprised by this veto, and I have already reached out, and both through the legislative process and the governor's office, that we're certainly not giving up on it. We're going to go right back after it, but it would be we've got a call to action where we would like to let small businesses, to let the governor know that we don't need her veto right now. We need small business support, and this is a really easy way for state government to help small business without it costing any state revenue at all, and then just administrative setup costs for Treasury.
Other states have passed the same legislation, so it actually in some ways puts us at a competitive disadvantage if our state doesn't move to give that kind of protection to our small businesses. So if you could respond to the call to action, that would be helpful. Add your voice to this effort, and we'll continue to stay on top of it as well. Well, thanks for joining us for the briefing. Just one quick, there's a webinar this Thursday, Tips for Small Businesses Struggling to Hire Talent. It is Thursday the 22nd at 1 o'clock. Hope you can join us then. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday, everybody.